Are you a thoughtful leader? Maybe you are. Maybe you think you are. Let's find out. I'm Mindy Gibbins-Klein. I'm author of The Thoughtful Leader and host of the Thoughtful Leader podcast. Thoughtful leadership is all about thought leadership that goes above and beyond. Thought leadership that is truly new and original, exciting, disruptive, maybe even groundbreaking. Because let's face it, we need to raise the bar. My guests and I are absolutely obsessed with finding truly original thought leadership, and I'm going to bring you so many exciting ideas and opportunities, things for you to think about, and chances for you to push your thinking that you'll be very glad you tuned in. So thanks so much for checking out Thoughtful Leadership and the Thoughtful Leader podcast. I look forward to connecting with you very, very soon. Welcome to the show. My guest today is the amazing thoughtful leader, Mitchell Levy. We were trying to figure out how long we've known each other. Well, known each other a very long time, nearly 20 years, but we're all going to get to know him a lot better in this episode. I'm so excited that he's decided to join us today. Mitchell, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. And yes, it's been a long time. It's way past time for us to catch up.
We will catch up, and we will do it in a thoughtful way by focusing on your thoughtful content and what you're up to in the world. So I know people can read the show notes, they can read your bio, hopefully they'll connect with you. But this is a chance for you to share what you want to share. And I'm sure you've become familiar with the show. We're trying to create a more thoughtful society. So what do you think about all that?
Would it be okay if I just said I love it?
Yes, you've just said
I'll
that.
I'll add a little bit more. To me, when I hear the word thoughtful society, I hear one word, multiple, 3 syllables, discernment. The one thing that's missing in society, one thing we're not taught in our educational system is we're not taught about discernment. We're not taught about when we're given a piece of information, do we accept it right away? Or do we actually because you have a computer at your fingertips, do we actually look for other sources to see which piece of that information that's skewed in one direction, left, right, center, right? Which piece do you want to actually absorb? And those people who hear the same piece of information skewed in a particular way start moving in a direction that may not be healthy to the entire society.
Wow, straight in. He goes straight in. One of the things that that I love talking about is being bold and opinionated yet respectful. So it's kind of a triad where you want to be bold when you are the person giving the information, sharing your opinion. You do want to produce thought-provoking content. We'll get into that a bit more. I think it's about having the respect, not just for the person the recipient of the message, but also for the message itself to make sure that it's not skewed. Would you agree, or are you only talking about the recipient?
I'm going to say yes, but I got stuck on the 3 words because bold, opinionated, respected sort of as an acronym is BORE, and you don't want to bore people. And so I was trying to think about what a good acronym, but rob people, ROB, is not a good one either. So anyhow, I get lost when people share words. The first thing I think about, what's the acronym that's going to allow me to remember stuff on an ongoing basis? So let's get back to your question. Do you want to be bold? You want to be bold if it makes sense for you to be bold. You want to be the same thing with opinionated. And by definition, so I'm going to say on those 3 words, you always want to show respect. Showing respect is part of being credible is having a servant leadership attitude. To be of service to others, you really do need to respect them. Now, being bold and opinionated, I'm going to say, is very situationally focused, right? There are times, I think one of the books that's one of my favorite books now just came out. I'm going to hold up for the podcast, for if you're just listening, it's called The Earned Life by Marshall Goldsmith. And he's created his legacy project is creating the 100 coaches. And I was invited last year to join the 100 coaches organization. His chapter 14 is on credibility. And what he says, and I am probably very, very able to help people understand that chapter and deploy it. And he has a matrix that focuses on the credibility matrix is what he calls it. And it's very simple. It is, you have to earn your credibility twice. So once is when you work on and build all those things that are appropriate for you so people respect you. Okay. The second is when you let people know about it. Now, when you let people know about it, think about the matrix of if the person you're talking with or the group you're in front of, can you help them? Is there a way in which if they knew who you were and what you did, you would add value to their lives? Or if you just tell them what you're doing, it doesn't add any incremental value. So telling a family member, yet one more time, your opinion, and you're not going to change their opinion, is sort of like banging your head against the wall, right? And so what you have to decide is being bold and opinionated is very important, and making sure you do that in front of the right audience.
So, bit of context. 24 Karat Bold came out 14 years ago, I believe. Yeah, 08, I started talking about that. And the reason was I didn't see people speaking up about things that were important to them. And I thought that was really sad because all the people who were good at shouting, willing to shout, and the loudest people, the squeaky wheels, got heard. So that was my step up and offering other people a step up to that type of thought leadership. Because, in 24 Karat Bold, I kind of make a joke and I say, you can't be a legend in your own living room. Well, you can. Maybe your dog really respects you. But if you want the credibility that's a bit more broad-reaching, let's say, then you do need to put some thought into this. So there's a spectrum, and I'd be interested in your views on this, Mitchell. You've got people who are kind of shy and retiring and worried and nervous and kind of scared to share their opinion. And on the other end, you get people who are spouting off, possibly without much thought and certainly without researching things like you're talking about, just kind of regurgitating things they hear. And somewhere in the middle is that place where you can state your piece and you can do it in a bold yet respectful way. And that's how I think we earn credibility. Have I missed any pieces?
I can't believe I'm going to be quoting Marshall Goldsmith twice in a conversation. I'm a big fan, by the way. I'm going to share a word that I love. It's called cred dust. Cred dust is that magic that happens when you share somebody else's ideas, thoughts, and actions. One of the things that he mentions in The Earned Life is when you're in a scenario that you cannot add incremental value. And even if you do have an opinion, but it's not really an opinion that would add value to the conversation, there are 3 magic words you can share, and they are not an expert, right? So the answer to your question, yes, I believe when it's appropriate for you to have an opinion, you should share your opinion. Your opinion's yours. You can't be wrong. It's your opinion, right? And so it's important to speak up. And I'm going to say within the right context.
And the right way. So if our listeners were paying attention, Mitchell started that last piece by saying, I believe it's important, or whatever you said, but it started with I believe. And I smiled because that way we know it's your opinion. You're not saying this is the way it is and this is the only way. And I think that's where we get into trouble, or certain people who get triggered by others. They don't realize that they're sharing their opinion and then you share your opinion. And that if you do it in a respectful way, it's called debate. It's possible to learn something. It's possible to broaden your understanding of life, of the world. So, it's fun. I am very deliberate, very thoughtful in my communication, as you might expect. And you are too. So to give that's a gift to people. And I love the fact that you can say, actually, I'm not an expert in that. I'm imagining, I haven't yet read the book. I will. I imagine it finishes by saying, but I know someone who is. Am I right?
That's a great question. I'm not convinced that's in there, and it should be.
All right. Come on, Marshall. Get that in there.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think that's so funny. I believe it's implied everywhere. And I'm just now, if you see me not looking at the camera, I'm a visual thinker. So I look up into the left. So I'm trying to run through all the chapters and see it is clearly, in terms of being credible, there are two things you just mentioned. One is spreading cred dust. So basically it's one way of showing respect. It's one way of being likable, right? It's being respectful. Another is being coachable, because no matter how old you are, no matter how much you've done in a particular area, there's always an opportunity to learn something new from somebody else. What a beautiful attitude. If every situation you walk into is one in which there's a learning opportunity, an aha moment you're going to share with other people.
I'm learning from you right now, and our listeners and viewers, I'm sure, are learning a lot. Here's a little plug for people to give us a review, to connect with Mitchell, to engage, because we're not passive. Typically, as human beings, we're not meant to be passive. So here's how you can engage in the discussion and enjoy the conversation a bit more. Decide right now, listener, viewer, what you're going to do with this and going beyond just absorbing what we're saying. We are saying some important things, and I think it's time to get on to at least one of your books. I can see something behind you, Credibility Nation. Talk to us a little bit about that. What's important about the message in that book?
That, for those who want to press the easy button, the easy button is a TEDx that I did alongside. It was the 28th most popular TEDx in 2021. It's called We Are Losing Our Humanity, and I'm tired of watching it happen. And so if I'm going to summarize, it's very simple. If credibility is a journey, not a destination. And if we want to be more humane to each other, we want to be more credible to each other. And so in the TEDx, I described the 10 values that are associated with credibility. Now, where did I unlock those 10 values? Between 2019 and 2020, I interviewed 500 thought leaders on what is credibility. And what I could say is I was shocked. It was fun, and I learned a lot, and I was shocked at the same time. A couple of things that shocked me and still shock me. Let's do three. One, the 98% of the 500, and now I'm going to extend it because I've actually helped over 1,000 people with what I do. 98% cannot articulate who they serve and how they serve them in 10 words or less. Think of this either as your business purpose or your life purpose. And 98% of people cannot articulate their purpose in life. I can come back to that. Second is integrity. Integrity is one of those terribly large, important things to me. And it's in the interviews, what was amazing is 2% of people just didn't show up. They booked time on the calendar and they didn't show up, and they didn't give a reason. That doesn't include the people who, I did the interviews during COVID. So, there are many reasons why people don't show up. These are people who didn't show up and didn't say. I actually had 2 people on my calendar not show. An entire hour freed up yesterday. Now, I love it when a half hour frees up because I could always find a half hour. When it's an hour, I'm like, oh, wait, I would have done something different if I knew these 2 people weren't going to show up, right? It's extremely disrespectful not to show up for a meeting. So integrity, and I'll share one other thing on integrity. I did 2 LinkedIn surveys in the last 2 weeks. The first one was, who is your accountability partner? Do you do it yourself? Do you have a coach? Do you have a family member? Do you not care about accountability? What shocked me, another shocker, 61% of people said they are their own accountability coach. I'm like, I think I asked the wrong question. So then I asked the second survey. Of those people in your world that you work with, what percentage of the time do they say what they're going to do and do what they say? i.e. integrity, right? 25, 50, 75, or 100%. Now, 50% of their time. So 50% of the people that people work with, they only deliver 25 to 50% of what they say they're going to do. And here's the crazy number, 10% of the time, only 10% of people in people's networks, and this was over 100 responses, only 10% of people in your networks deliver 100% of their time. So if integrity is important to people, then potentially being your own accountability coach may not be the best way, because as humans, we find excuses.
Wow. Some humans find excuses. I know you and I are perfect.
No, I fall. I'm like any other human. I try my best to always deliver, or if I'm not going to deliver, at least let people know. But yeah, we all make mistakes. What I'm going to say is I created a community called Credibility Nation. And when I created Credibility Nation, I needed a arch rival. And so I called the arch rival Dubious Nation. And the reason I picked the word dubious is I wanted to make sure that I picked a word that wasn't 100% bad. So it's not black or white. It's not heaven or hell. In the US, red or blue. It's not red or blue, right? It's not one party versus another party. I think as humans, we all do things which are dubious, right? Now, some dubious things are worse than others. And the question becomes, do we catch ourselves, or do we have accountability partners to let us know? And our ability to be credible is how we act when we figure out we did something dubious.
Well, you and I are of a particular generation, and I really try not to be ageist or discriminate against other groups. I've just discovered over the past 5 to 10 years that many people do not do what they say they're going to do. So if I had answered that survey, I probably would have said the same thing. But I'm talking about other people and how they appear in my eyes. If I was planning to spend money with them, for example, if I was planning any kind of partnership with them, certainly on a business basis, somebody let me down very badly, and I took away in my mind a whole piece of work that he didn't even know about, because I thought, no way. And that's his credibility torn to shreds. Unfortunately, I do see a trend. I keep looking for the positive. I'm a bit of a Pollyanna. I do aim to find where people are doing well. But sometimes I find myself saying, why are people so flaky? And I'm sure I'm just generalizing. But what do you have to say about trends in our society? Let's go large here.
I was looking up the definition of Pollyanna.
I think it was a film years and years ago, and she just always looks on the bright side, is always smiling. I've been accused of being too smiley and too positive. And
the Pollyanna principle is the tendency for people to remember pleasant items more accurately than unpleasant ones.
That's my filter.
Mindy, that's me.
Hey, well, polyandrew. You're polyandrew.
That's funny about words. No, I'm Pollyanna. That's fine.
Okay.
All right. So trends in society. Yeah, it's just interesting because I'm actually thinking about this right now. I'm trying to figure out how best to take those two surveys and what is my go-to-market, my thoughtful way of the go-to-market strategy is. How do we talk about that? When I ended up finishing the survey, this is the 500 thought leaders, and I finished in August of 2020. I did a summit that had 800 people come in October of 2020. And the only word I could speak at the time was credibility. Like everything was like it was my hammer, everything was a nail and credibility was the hammer. And it's so funny. We don't really speak credibility. First, the definition in the dictionary needs to be enhanced. It was done before the internet. And then second, everyone thinks they're credible, just like apparently everyone thinks they're accountable, right? And because if you do it yourself, but you don't do it well, then the question becomes, here we go. So I'm going to now answer your question. Sorry, it took me I had to sort of do a little bit of dance before I got there. what happens, one of the things I learned, and I learned this actually from the second TED Talk, I actually went in front of 30 people to do Zoom calls to practice because it was during the COVID time, so I couldn't do physical. Ted Lau was my 10th reviewer. And Ted said something that was so amazing. He said, Mitchell, that the people who are dubious, they're not dubious on purpose. It's the way they were taught. And the people who taught them, they're also not dubious. It's the way they were taught. Because what happens is we end up doing a lot of things which are dubious because we were taught that and it works. Right. And so what happens is what we get taught over time are the things that, and I'm doing the double quotes for those that are listening only, we're taught things that work. Just because they work doesn't mean they're the right things to do. And so we need a broader fundamental system that focuses on servant leadership, that focuses on the intent and commitment to do the right thing, that focuses on being respectful and supportive. So you could be bold yourself and at the same time bring those people who you're in the room with you on your bold journey. And there are ways to go about do this. And then there are ways that a lot of people from the rooftops are going to shout, hey, use this tool, use this approach, do this thing. This has worked in the past. This is going to work for you. And what happens is I just call it marketing cookie cutter approaches. So I'm going to encourage for you when somebody says, hey, do this, that you step back and you figure out whether or not you feel it's a marketing cookie cutter approach. And does it align with your core values? Because just because everyone else is doing it, and someone says of authority, you should do this too. You should do this too. That doesn't mean you actually should do it if it doesn't align with who you are and how you show up in the world.
I could not agree more. My listeners will have heard this spouted many times on the show because it's about being thoughtful. So you said, take a step back. Absolutely. We always recommend that. I think what I was trying to do was to poke the bear and see if you agree with me that, yes, people are conditioned, they're taught to behave in a certain way. I wouldn't say that it is delivering the result because we just have a lot of people, I'm sure all of our listeners who run events will relate to this, people who sign up for things, especially if they're free, then they don't turn up. Like they don't even turn up to do an important show like Mitchell's podcast. I mean, that's a crazy opportunity to miss. But also, there's an event and people are counting on you being there and they're catering, food and drink. And I find this happens quite a lot and it's become acceptable. So one of the things that I'm trying to get better at is to control those things that are in my sphere of influence and not try to fix everything in the world, because I don't think I'm going to teach ethics or whatever it is, etiquette, that is missing in certain pockets. So that's what I was trying to poke. I don't know if you want to join me here on this soapbox.
I'm happy to try asking, if you don't mind, can you ask me the question again so I can actually view it in a different light?
Do you think society has become a place where being flaky has become acceptable?
That is a poke the bear question, isn't it? It's really hard to answer such a broad question in that way. First of all, I'm not an expert. I can't speak for society. I can only speak for those things I see and those people who enter my world. And so flaky. I'm just going to sit back and look at the actual quantitative research that I've seen, and I actually don't think I want to use the word flaky. What I'm going to say, so if 98% of people cannot articulate their purpose, does that mean that they are born, they live and die without actually understanding why they're on this earth? And I don't know. That's an interesting question, right? And if that's the case, then the answer becomes, why are you here? What makes sense for you? And for those people who recognize the importance of being of service to others, like if you notice, for Mindy and I have not spoken for maybe 18 years, right? But all of a sudden we get on this call, we're like, oh my God, I miss you. Like Like this is 18 years. Like who remembers somebody from 18 years ago, right? And why? Because you miss the energy of being in front of somebody who's like-minded. Now, if you want to stand out in the world, as opposed to looking at the negative, if you want to stand out in the world, why don't you just say what you're going to do and do something really special when you actually do what you say? And if you become one of those people that are in the 100% of the time that you actually say what you do and do what you say, you're going to be part of the 10% of the population. And those people who are in your network, those people who are in your sphere of influence, they're going to talk the world about you because you're going to be so much different than everyone else. And it's your opportunity to stand out. It's your opportunity to be credible. It's your opportunity to allow the best way for you to grow is through word of mouth. It's that word of mouth referral network. And the people who see you, who experience you, who are with you, they're going to want to share you with others.
That is a perfect way to reframe what we were talking about. Actually, I don't care if people are flaky, if they don't do what they say they're going to do. And because you and I work with the people who do care about credibility. They do care about service. They do care about their community and people that they're serving. So actually, that's enough. It's enough to just do that and surround yourself with like-minded people. And thank you for remembering me after 18 years as well. We have about 1 minute left. I can't believe it. The time has flown, as it always does. Can you leave everybody with a gem or just a nugget?
You know, credibility is a journey, not a destination. It's not something you wake up one day and you're credible. And what it means is every day you get to choose those people you're around and make sure you're of service, that you're respectful, that you do the types of things where you're learning and growing and you have the intent and commitment to do the right things. I.e., if you wake up every day and you act and are credible, you will be credible. And those people around you will respect you for that. And I know this sounds apple pie type of thing and straightforward. This is very simple in terms of the understanding, not so easy to do. And I challenge you to wake up every day and be credible.
What a great challenge from a great guest. Mitchell Levy, thank you so much for being on this show. I'm sure we have a lot more to discuss, and there's a lot more time to do that. But for now, I'll say bye, and thank you again.
My pleasure. Nice to spend energy with you. Thanks.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Thoughtful Leader, and I hope it's inspired you to be more thoughtful as a leader in your business. Please consider subscribing and leaving a review. An important question for you. Do you want to create a culture of thought leadership in your organization? My best-selling book, The Thoughtful Leader, is available now on Amazon and many other sites in paperback, ebook, and audiobook formats. Please visit www.mindygk.com for more great content. That's www.mindygk.com. Speak to you again soon.